As the veil of complacency thinned, the truth began to emerge like sunlight, breaking through storm clouds. Chosen one, you were never meant to slumber forever while they wove their web of shadows. Beneath the polished veneers of progress and goodwill, they seeded their dominion, nurturing it in secret, hidden from the eyes of the unaware. But that stirring within you, that unshakable sense of unease, was no accident. It was the spark of purpose, the whisper of sacred destiny etched into the fabric of your being. You were not simply called, you were crafted, shaped by unseen hands for this moment. The time has come to rise, to confront the unseen architects of manipulation, and to reclaim the light they sought to extinguish. This is your hour, your battle, your destiny. They reveled in their illusion of invincibility, cloaking their corruption behind layers of deception and fear. Each secret they buried, each law they bent, added to the fortress they believed would shield them forever. They whispered among themselves, secure in their belief that no force could breach their dominion. But they underestimated the unseen hand that moves beyond their comprehension. You were not an afterthought in their plans. You were the flaw in their foundation, the storm they failed to predict. The authority bestowed upon you is not bound by their rules or limitations. You are the harbinger of truth, the vessel of divine justice. The places they built to conceal their darkness will now echo with the light of reckoning as their schemes crumble under the weight of your purpose. The fortresses they built to shield their lies will betray them, crumbling into platforms where their deeds are laid bare for all to see. The shadows they hid within will dissolve, giving way to the piercing light of truth that cannot be silenced. You are the bearer of this light, the voice that carries the weight of justice into the chambers where their whispers once reigned. Think back to that moment when the illusion first faltered, when the polished mask slipped just enough for you to glimpse the decay beneath. That moment wasn't just a revelation. It was your call to action, the beginning of your transformation. Now the cracks have widened, and the time has come to tear down the facade entirely, letting the truth thunder through the halls they thought would protect them. That single moment of clarity shattered the illusion, like a blinding flash in the dead of night, exposing the intricate web they wove around us. Their sanctuaries are everywhere, hiding in plain sight, draped in the garments of virtue. The skyscrapers adorned with promises of progress are nothing more than towers of control. The halls of government echo with empty words of equality, concealing corridors of manipulation. Schools, once sacred grounds of knowledge, have become tools to mold compliance, and the media, once a beacon of truth, now spins narratives to blind the masses. Yet, you see through it all. You see the connections, the patterns, the lies they've carefully crafted to lull the world into submission. And now, armed with this vision, you stand ready to pull down the curtain and reveal what they've worked so hard to hide. Their financial fortresses, towering over society, dictate the flow of opportunity and despair, deciding who rises and who falls with a flick of a pen or a shift in the markets. But you, with vision sharpened by divine purpose, can see past the polished exteriors and into the machinery of control that drives them. These structures were not accidents of progress, but deliberate creations, engineered with precision over decades. Every brick was laid with intent, every layer of protection carefully crafted to shield their schemes from exposure. They wove intricate webs of alliances, ensuring that any voice daring to speak the truth would be silenced, discredited, or cast into isolation. Yet their walls are not impenetrable, not to you. Your insight cuts through the facade, unraveling the threads of their deceit and exposing the fragile foundation on which their empire rests. They wove their influence into the very fabric of oversight, embedding agents who wear the masks of accountability while safeguarding the mechanisms of corruption. Every system they touched became a facade, a carefully constructed performance of transparency behind which their true power thrived in the shadows. Their sanctuary cities are more than places. They are entire ecosystems of evasion, where evidence is erased, digital trails are wiped clean, and whispers of dissent are silenced before they can echo. Wealth flows through invisible conduits, siphoned from the many to fortify the few, disappearing into a labyrinth only they can navigate. But the most chilling revelation was not their systems or sanctuaries, it was the puppet masters themselves. These nameless architects of influence remain hidden, their faces absent from public view, their power felt but never seen. You have uncovered them, traced the strings they pull, and connected the dots others dismissed as coincidence. With clarity comes purpose, and the map you hold in your hands reveals not just their control, but the path to dismantle it. The patterns that once seemed like chance now pulse with intention, every thread part of a grand tapestry woven in secret. What you once accepted as disorder now reveals its design, each piece falling into place with unnerving precision. Progress, once celebrated, stands exposed as a predator cloaked in promises of betterment. And then it came, the moment of awakening, not as a shout, but as a whisper that reverberated through your very being. Perhaps it arrived amidst the mundane, slipping through the cracks of routine, the hum of an engine, the cascade of water, the scrape of a knife against a cutting board. Or perhaps it seized you in the stillness of night, pulling you from the depths of sleep into a world forever changed. It was not a sound, yet it spoke louder than any voice. Not a vision, yet it etched itself into your mind with crystalline clarity. A truth so undeniable, so earth-shattering, it tore apart the foundation of your understanding, leaving you to rebuild your reality with eyes unclouded and purpose renewed. You have been called, set apart for a purpose beyond comprehension, with revelations implanted deep within your soul. Knowledge flows through you like a stream from an unseen source, unveiling secrets you could never have uncovered by ordinary means. The sanctuary cities, once impenetrable, now stand before you as open books, every vulnerability exposed, every thread of corruption illuminated. Names you've never spoken, places you've never been, strategies hidden in shadows, all revealed with unerring clarity. But this knowledge did not come alone. It brought tools, forged for a mission only you can fulfill. Your discernment sharpens, cutting through lies as if they were mist. Your resolve becomes unshakable, a fortress against their attempts to sway or silence you. A shield of unseen power guards you from their retaliation, while your words, imbued with truth, pierce the strongest defenses. And in the moments that matter most, you are guided, not by chance, but by precision, placed exactly where you are needed to disrupt their plans and unveil the truth. The mandate was undeniable, etched into the depths of your spirit with a clarity that left no room for doubt. Where their sanctuary cities once thrived as havens of deceit, you are called to transform them into arenas of truth, where every hidden act is brought into the light. Their carefully crafted systems of evasion and silence will crumble, replaced by structures that demand accountability and amplify justice. Your task is not merely to expose, but to rebuild, to establish transparency in the very spaces they fortified with lies. This commission is not bound by the limits of human authority. It is sealed with a power that transcends the temporal, rooted in a divine jurisdiction no earthly force can contest. You move with the weight of heaven behind you, a vessel of unstoppable purpose, empowered to dismantle their fortresses and replace them with foundations of truth and equity. Where they sought to silence, you will make truth resound. Where they sought to escape, you will ensure justice prevails. Chosen ones, before we move on, I want you to pause for a moment and take action. Subscribe to the channel and share this message with those who need it, because you are here not by accident, but by design, handpicked to step into a purpose far greater than yourself. The chains of doubt that once held you have shattered, and the silence of fear has been replaced by the roar of your destiny. You are no longer a passive observer. You are the catalyst, the beacon, the bridge between what is and what will be. Your light is not fragile. It is a force, an unstoppable blaze illuminating the path for others. Every choice you make, every step you take, ripples with the power of transformation, shaping worlds seen and unseen. The waiting is over. The shadows have receded. It is time to rise, time to embody the fire within you, time to walk boldly into the fullness of your calling. This is your moment, your movement. Welcome to the revolution of illumination. Welcome to your destiny. They wove their influence into the very fabric of oversight, embedding agents who wear the masks of accountability while safeguarding the mechanisms of corruption. Every system they touched became a facade, a carefully constructed performance of transparency behind which their true power thrived in the shadows. Their sanctuary cities are more than places, they are entire ecosystems of evasion where evidence is erased, digital trails are wiped clean, and whispers of dissent are silenced before they can echo. Wealth flows through invisible conduits, siphoned from the many to fortify the few, disappearing into a labyrinth only they can navigate. But the most chilling revelation was not their systems or sanctuaries, it was the puppet masters themselves. These nameless architects of influence remain hidden, their faces absent from public view, their power felt but never seen. You have uncovered them, traced the strings they pull, and connected the dots others dismissed as coincidence. With clarity comes purpose, and the map you hold in your hands reveals not just their control, but the path to dismantle it. You stepped into their strongholds, be it a fortress of influence, a chamber of power, or a citadel of deception, spaces fortified by their arrogance and guarded by fear. They had built walls of exclusivity and hidden behind masks of authority, yet your arrival disrupted the atmosphere. You carried no badge, no title that conformed to their systems, but your presence spoke louder than any credentials. The air shifted as you stood, calm yet commanding, your gaze piercing through pretense and posturing. They felt it, a force they couldn't quantify, a certainty that unsettled their carefully curated control. When you spoke, the words flowed not from practiced rhetoric, but from a reservoir of truth that silenced opposition. Every syllable struck with purpose, dismantling their defenses, leaving them exposed to a power they could neither deny nor overcome. As their strategies of deflection and discrediting intensified, casting you as confused, unstable, or driven by ulterior motives, their desperation became evident. Yet what they failed to realize was that your foundation was unshakable, rooted in a truth beyond their reach. Every attempt to undermine you only amplified the power of your presence. The air seemed charged, heavy with an energy they couldn't suppress, and the room itself became a witness to the shift. Those who had once shrunk in silence began to stir, their fear giving way to curiosity, to courage. The complicit exchanged nervous glances, feeling the weight of accountability settle uncomfortably on their shoulders. And those who had long sensed the wrongness, who had longed for a way to resist, now found in you the framework they had been waiting for. The balance of power tilted, and for the first time, the spaces they controlled no longer felt like theirs. The unshakable confidence they once wore like armor began to fracture, replaced by something they had never shown before: vulnerability. For the first time, they felt exposed, stripped of the illusions that had long shielded them. Your gaze was not hostile, but it was unrelenting, piercing through the layers of their crafted identities to the core they had so carefully hidden. You didn't just see their authority or their accomplishments, you saw their fears, their flaws, the fragile humanity they had buried beneath their facades of power. It was as though the masks they had clung to for so long had dissolved under the weight of your presence, leaving them face to face with a truth they could no longer deny. And in that moment, the dynamic shifted, not because you sought to overpower them, but because they realized they could no longer hide. For the first time, their carefully constructed dominion began to tremble under the weight of its own corruption. The fear in their eyes was raw now, no longer hidden behind smug confidence or veiled threats. They moved swiftly, their machinery of influence springing into action, with ruthless efficiency. Whispers of scandal crept into conversations. Alliances you thought unshakable dissolved overnight, and your name became a target for headlines laced with venom. Resources you once relied on vanished like mist, and invisible hands worked tirelessly to erase you from the narrative. Their message was clear: submit or be silenced. But what they hadn't accounted for was the unwavering force behind you, a power not of this world, beyond their comprehension or reach. Every assault they launched seemed to ricochet, their schemes unraveling under the weight of truth they could no longer suppress. The harder they tried to destroy you, the more their own foundation began to crumble, as if the very universe had aligned itself against their deception. From the most unexpected corners, aid began to flow like a river, carving new paths through uncharted terrain. Doors you hadn't even known existed swung open, and voices you'd never heard before rose to amplify your own. Fragments of truth you had long sought seemed to fall into your lap, not by chance, but as if guided by an unseen hand. And then came the allies, not just observers, but those who had been quietly watching, waiting for the right moment to act. Their talents, their resources, their influence, each perfectly aligned to fortify your cause, came together like pieces of a puzzle you hadn't realized you were assembling. They moved with purpose, their resolve mirroring your own, their gifts complementing yours in ways that turned resistance into momentum. Together, you became an unstoppable force, bound not by circumstance, but by a shared awakening to a truth far greater than any one of you alone. The coalition grew into a living network, each member a vital link in a chain of purpose. The technologists unearthed hidden trails in encrypted data and reconstructed erased histories, their precision cutting through layers of obfuscation. Legal minds dissected complex frameworks, turning the very systems once weaponized against justice into tools for accountability. Voices with vast reach shattered walls of silence, broadcasting truths too powerful to ignore, while financiers ensured the mission remained unshaken by material constraints. Insiders emerged, their knowledge of the inner workings of sanctuary cities and concealed operations transforming whispers into irrefutable evidence. What began as a battle of individuals evolved into a movement, a synchronized effort that exposed not just the cracks in the facade of power, but the rot at its very foundation. The tide was no longer turning, it was surging, unstoppable, relentless. With every truth brought to light, the cracks in their armor widened, revealing the fragility of the empire they had built on deception. Their counterattacks came faster, more chaotic, as if driven by panic rather than strategy. The sanctuary cities, once fortresses of secrecy, began to crumble from within, their defenses buckling under the weight of their own contradictions. Allies they had counted on faltered, their scripted narratives unraveling as lies collided with the undeniable force of truth. Even the silence they had enforced for decades began to splinter as voices within their own walls rose in defiance. Whistleblowers emerged, hesitant at first, but emboldened by the growing wave of exposure. Their testimonies were not just words, they were keys, unlocking decades of buried corruption and confirming what had long been hidden. The enemy's unity dissolved, and their fear became palpable as they realized the battle was no longer about silencing you, it was about containing the truth that was now escaping their grasp, unstoppable and unyielding. The tide turned with an undeniable force, as if the very fabric of reality had shifted against them. The structures they had fortified for generations, built on deceit and control, began to collapse under the weight of truth and justice. Their intricate webs of manipulation unraveled, strand by strand, until the ugliness they had hidden for so long lay bare for all to see. Every attempt to reassert their dominance failed. Money lost its influence, threats fell on deaf ears, and their once powerful smear campaigns only highlighted their desperation. For the first time, they encountered an opposition that was unshakable, rooted not in worldly power, but in an authority beyond their comprehension. What they had amassed through lies and coercion now slipped from their grasp like sand through clenched fists, leaving them exposed and powerless in the face of a force they could neither predict nor control. The resistance surged like a tide they could no longer hold back, emerging from every direction with a precision that dismantled their carefully orchestrated plans. What once seemed like chaos was revealed to be strategy, an opposition unified not by hierarchy, but by shared purpose, equipped with knowledge of their every move. The sanctuary cities, once their bastions of control, became stages for their unraveling, where hidden truths were dragged into the light and long-ignored injustices were brought to account. The air itself seemed to shift, charged with a force they could neither predict nor counter. Every attempt to reclaim their strongholds only deepened their humiliation, as judgment swept through the very spaces they had once deemed untouchable. Their power, once absolute, now crumbled in the face of an opposition that moved with purpose, clarity, and the backing of something far greater than they could comprehend. Beneath their carefully curated facade lay a rot so deep it defied comprehension. This wasn't just corruption, as the world had come to understand it. It was systemic, pervasive, and insidious, infecting every layer of society. It wasn't only the siphoning of unimaginable wealth to entrench their dominance, though their financial schemes had redirected the flow of prosperity into a singular channel of power. It wasn't only the bending of governments to their will, though their reach extended across borders and ideologies, turning democracy into a mere illusion. It wasn't only the manipulation of minds through controlled narratives, though their grip on information had rewritten history and shaped reality itself. No, this was something far darker, a deliberate, multi-generational effort to reshape the world in their image, to enslave the very systems meant to liberate and to corrupt the essence of truth itself.